Hey there, it's Mackenzie, your host of Winning. We're looking for sponsors for the podcast. If you have a business that you would like to promote to thousands of people, send us an email at podcastwinning@gmail.com or send us a message on social media. I cannot wait to hear from you. Now on to the show.
Winning is your guide to making it in business. Join our award-winning host and entrepreneur, Mackenzie Kilshaw, and special guests in casual conversations that will educate and inspire you on your business journey. Winning will help you learn the hard lessons the easy way with guidance from celebrated entrepreneurs and business leaders. It's fun. It's informative. It's winning.
Hello, welcome to Winning. I am your host, Mackenzie Kilshaw, and today's guest is Travis Lowe. Hi, Travis.
Hey, Mackenzie.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm really good. I'm enjoying the nice weather. I'm happy to have you on. Travis is the CEO and owner of Blue Moose Media in Saskatoon. It's an award-winning digital marketing and social media agency. They focus on business development and organizational strategy as well. Before Blue Moose, he was the executive director of the Parkinson Society of Saskatchewan and the founder of the Shaker event, Lowe's in Motion, which I always loved. It was such a great event. Blue Moose has actually helped over 1,000 businesses in the province, helping them cultivating engaging online presence that translates aspirations into results. So, Travis, thank you for being on. Do you want to kind of tell the audience a little bit more about who you are?
Sorry for everybody laughing there, Mackenzie. You froze up in the middle of there, so my apologies. But this is just going to be a fun conversation, so we're all good. So, so I guess thanks for the introduction. Yeah, I guess my background was very unconventional, I guess. I came out of university, went to the Edwards School of Business, and had my Bachelor of Commerce and in management, and came out, wanted to be a financial advisor, kind of bounced around a bit. Had in that time period started the event, the Lowe's in Motion Parkinson Shaker, and that was really my first entrepreneurial venture. And it was such a learning curve, such a cool opportunity to learn about building a brand and like trying to attract an audience and how to market and how to, work with a committee of people and all of those fun things. And, we ran that event for 10 years and had a ton of fun and success with the event. And that event kind of 3-4 years into the event had led me into the executive director position, which was ultimately my second organization that I was managing and talk about learning curve. Holy, responsible for the province of Saskatchewan for the Parkinson community and also working on an executive leadership team across Canada, working with all the other charities working for Parkinson's. And I didn't even know what board governance was at the time. And I had a real quick lesson on that, working with the board of directors and then ultimately the federation of all the other charities across the country. But what an amazing, 4 years I got to do that. And it was such a dream job. My dad lives with Parkinson's, so it's near and dear to my heart to be, putting my time and effort and energies into helping those people out. That ultimately actually kind of led to me having to leave. I was just battling emotionally. It was just so hard to be so close to the subject and to that population and community. Even though I loved it so much, I just couldn't continue. And so had to step away and took a year break. Actually, I went traveling for a year after running the charity for those years, and went into Europe for 7 months, and then went down to South America, and honestly just was surfing and doing yoga down in South America for 4 months. And it was a dream life.
I was going to say, that sounds fantastic.
It was definitely a dream. And but I guess this is all kind of segueing up because my ultimate dream, the whole reason I went to university, the whole reason I wanted to go into business was to become an entrepreneur. It's literally what I've always known I wanted to do. I don't know exactly why, because neither of my parents are entrepreneurs, but my grandparents were, so kind of funny, I guess.
You saw it probably growing up with them.
Kind of, yeah. My grandpa, one grandpa's a farmer. My other grandpa, did have a couple retail stores actually in Rosetown, Saskatchewan. So I came home from those travels and was just brainstorming ideas, and I probably had a dozen different business ideas. And I would just jot them down. Sometimes I'd be out for drinks with friends and would be thinking of the idea, and I would just write myself a note. And the next day I would just kind of crush, like, what would this look like? And would this even be feasible? Build out a financial. And my good friend of mine that I went to university with, Ricky Forbes, him and I were paddleboarding down the river one day, and we were just catching up. He was kind of just finishing. He's a storm chaser, so he chased tornadoes and had a TV show and had some successes with that. And he was kind of at a crossroads at that time, and both of us just were chatting. And he's like, "You want to should we do something together?" And I was like, well, "What would it look like?" He's like, "Well, I have a big social media audience, and you've ran some organizations, so why don't we combine forces?" And I was like, "You know what? Let's go for it. Like, why not?" I was like, at the time I was like not super passionate about, like, let's say social media or even marketing. And then once we started to work with businesses and start to understand, their challenges and start to come up with solutions for them and learn more about it, it just grew on me. And I just, really grew a passion for, working with these small businesses and trying to help them to be able to better achieve what they were trying to, the areas that they were trying to grow in, whether that be, recruiting employees or generating more leads or just general brand awareness. It just kind of took off. And I honestly, from my expectations going into it, I thought we were going to last 6 months.
I hope so.
It's so funny. I was like, we'll just try this out and
see how it goes.
If it doesn't work, I mean, what's the worst that can happen here? I mean,
that's actually the best attitude.
Yeah,
that really is. It's like, let's try it, because what do you have to lose, right? It's you and your friend, you're paddleboarding, literally. Okay, let's give it a shot, right? Like, it's a great attitude.
Yeah, and it was like, and then we kind of got going with it, and it started to get more like within 6 months, it just was really picking up, and I was like, okay, like. It's not going to.
We have a business. Yeah. Wait a minute.
6 months. Holy. And at the time, actually, we were doing social media management for companies, and building websites and doing photography and literally anything that people would pay us money for. We were like, yep, we'll do it.
You just keep on taking whatever you can do because you build your portfolio and you want to have all of these people say, oh, they did my photography. Oh, they did my social media management. Oh, they did my website, right? And then they tell a friend and you get more business.
Exactly. And so that's how it started. But then we soon realized it's hard to scale a business that way, right? When you're trying to do so many things. I mean, recruiting is a nightmare because you're trying to look for a combination of all these skill sets. It's more difficult to be able to become known for anything because you're doing so many different things. You can't create these like smooth, repeatable processes because you're having to do that for a variety of different types of things. And so it got to this point where at this time, I need to backtrack a little bit. We had got asked to do some training. And, I was pitching actually one of my best childhood friends, Brett Payne, who owns a denture clinic here in town. And he was like, you know what? Love what you guys are doing. I just don't think we can work it into our budget. Can you just teach us how to do it? Like, we have some capacity internally to do this. Can you just teach us how to do it? And I was like, I don't know. Let's see if we can. And so I went back to the office. I went back to the office and chatted with Ricky, and he's like, yeah, sure. Let's give it a shot. Let's see what kind of curriculum we can put together. And then that just took off on us. All of a sudden we recognized that there was a lot of organizations out there that weren't willing to, let's say, outsource to a contractor, that were wanting to be able to empower their existing team to be better marketers. And yeah, we kind of realized there's a market for this. And so we were kind of simultaneously building two sides of the business. We were doing social media management, and then we were doing training. And then it got to a point where we were like, you know what, we need to choose one. And we really loved the training, and we knew that it was a bit of a unique thing for us. And so, yeah, we just kind of, it was actually a really tough point in business, because we had these clients that were actually committed to us on a long-term basis, that were loving working with us, that we had to say, I'm sorry, we're not doing that anymore, and had to forego that cash flow that was coming for us, and kind of go in this other direction and say, okay, like, we're committing to this, let's go for it. And so, that was a big decision in business to kind of niche and focus on that specific service delivery. So
was that scary for you to say, like, we can't take your money anymore and go in another direction?
Yeah. I mean, like, and I think any entrepreneur can chat about this, a time in business when they've had to say no to business, right?
Yeah.
It's a power. It's a great thing to be able to do, but it's also scary to do it sometimes, because you're like, oh, I'm like giving up this opportunity. But I mean, you're also giving that opportunity up for something else, another opportunity, right? You're opening space and capacity and energy towards something else. And so, I think it was the best decision we ever made, to be honest. It really took off from there. That was, at that time, we had 3 courses that we were teaching. And of course, over time, as the platforms have changed, as the way that you market changes, we've just continued to add and evolve that curriculum to make sure that it's current and relevant to, the audience that we're working with. We primarily work with small businesses in Saskatchewan is kind of who we work with. And we're so fortunate. We've been able to work with well over 1,000 businesses in the province, across the province, down in southern Saskatchewan to northern Saskatchewan to, I know you're in Steph Current. We spent some time in Steph Current. Just love it. It's so cool to be able to work with the variety of different types of businesses.
A huge thank you to our sponsor, Just For You Day Spa and Wellness. Just For You is Canada's premier day spa with 5 locations in Alberta and Saskatchewan. The award-winning luxury spa features Leah Reese cosmetics and iconic Betty jewelry that you can also purchase online. Visit www.justforyoudayspa.com to book your service or to purchase a gift card. Yeah, I like how you talked about niching and how you had to make that decision to choose a path, because I do think a lot of times small business, they try to kind of be everything for everyone. And usually that's when you face more problems, right? Than when you find what you're good at. And for you guys, like, honestly, I don't even know anyone else that's offering the things you guys do for training.
Yeah, I mean, there are some people, I won't say their name, but there are people. But yeah, I mean, when we first started doing it, we were definitely the only ones that were doing it. During the pandemic, after the pandemic, there was a bunch of funding that came out. And it was at that time that we saw lots of people surface and start to offer similar to what we were doing. Yeah. We were very well equipped for that funding as well, because we were already, that was what we were doing. We weren't recreating anything. It was literally like, okay, like, there's businesses in need, let's help them, and let's utilize what we've been building for the past few years to be able to, help people come out of that tough time of the pandemic. So
yeah. And I took your course. November of 2020, I took one of the courses. I was able to get the government funding as the small business to take your course. And I have a marketing degree, but the digital marketing, 20 years ago, you didn't teach that at Edward School of Business when I was there.
No.
Yeah. So it helped me a lot too in my business. And really, when you're a small business, marketing, I find, is one of the hardest things that people face, because they know they have to do something, but they're not really sure what to do.
Yeah, no, exactly. So many people have used the tools or are familiar with what the tools, even just what they are, but they don't know how to use it as a business, right? So that's ultimately what we always kind of said. Like, we really wanted to empower, these organizations to be able to access fairly, inexpensive tools to be able to better, their business results. So, and those results could be anything. They could be, it could be ticket sales. It could be lead generation. It could be brand awareness about a specific new service or product offering. It could be trying to recruit and profile your culture of your organization. So we just really wanted to be able to help these small businesses on how to better do that and how to use these tools that were ultimately free for them, but use it in a strategic, business focused way. So, and it's been so much fun. I always say too that because we're a small business, we very much understand the constraints that all small businesses have. When we're preaching the best practices and some of those things, we're not just saying like, in an ideal world, here's what you would do. It's more like, understanding that you have limited resources. Here's how we think that you can operationalize these best practices. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So it's like, it's not just like, of course we all wish that we could do everything, but that's impossible. And so we got to, when we have limited resources, let's use them in the most strategic, efficient way that we can. So,
Yeah. And I feel too, like you're better off to do, especially for marketing, pick one or two things that you're going to do and do them really good than try to just do everything and just throw out their stuff. Right.
Exactly. No, that's exactly it. We've been talking about that for years, just honestly, and from a platform perspective, because, often we'll find lots of our clients will want to be on every single social media platform. And we just have to kind of bring them back to reality that do you want your life just to be full of being spread so thin with all these notifications and all these different people that you're trying to engage with, and you ultimately aren't engaging with any of them because you're spread too thin, right?
Well, and it doesn't make sense for some people, especially now with the rise of TikTok and all of these different platforms. So Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok. I mean, there's a dozen more I'm probably not even saying, but you can't, if you want to be on all of those and do them all good, you literally need a full-time person. Just that's their job.
Or multiple full-time people.
Yeah.
Right?
Right? It's so true.
That's just social media we're talking. We're not even talking about any of your, marketing automation, your email marketing, your advertising. There's so much to it, right? Your website of things, landing page creation, it just goes on and on, right? So
exactly.
But so go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I have a burning question that I should have asked you at the very beginning, and I didn't.
No, it's all good.
Where the heck did blue moose come from?
Oh my God. Again, I should have had this chat with you before we started, not to ask me that question.
I think I've actually heard the story before, but I know people are listening and saying, what?
It's such a bad story. It's actually a non-story. I wish. And we've talked for years. We got to create some fake story about this thing because it's
we saw a blue moose walking down the road.
It's the most common question. People don't care about what we're offering for service. We'll give this presentation and filled with just tips and whatever else. And then somebody puts up their hand and they're like, "Hey, I got a question for you. Where did the name come from?" And I'm like, "Oh man, that's of all things." And sorry. So anybody who's ever started a business knows that process, you can have all your service delivery figured out. You can have your, building figured out, what you need for staffing, but to figure out the name was such a hard process. So, and so we had 20 different names, and we were looking for something. So at the time it was just Ricky and I, and we were looking for something that was reflective of us. And we were thinking we wanted it to be, we're both guys who love the outdoors, are Canadians, and we wanted to focus on the tourism industry. So, and then the color blue is a trustworthy color in the psychology of marketing colors. So that's the story. We wanted it to be memorable. We wanted it to be if I walked into a room and told you I worked for a place, that you would remember it. And I think we did okay. I think we nailed it. And it's funny because we had no experience doing any of that work. We just did it on our own, didn't hire anybody to help us. And I think it was good.
You know what, though? It is a conversation starter. And I think that's part of it because people are, where did it come from? It starts that conversation and it builds people's interest, right? They have a peak because they're like, what the heck is it, right? I think it was actually smart to do that. It's kind of obscure, but it's also really catching, right?
Yeah.
That was a good move.
You wouldn't want to see. I should try to find the old list of all the other names we had because there was just like some terrible names. It would have been funny. We should actually go back into that and like create logos for them and see if anybody would have ever liked those ones.
That would be a good social media campaign.
That would.
You can have somebody do that for the next week for their full-time job.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, I think though, this isn't even on our conversation topic, but the name of your business is, like you said, it's really hard to name a business. And especially now in 2014, if you want to get a domain name, like you might have an idea and you can't even get the name for your website or social media. So it is better to pick something that is kind of obscure or something that maybe means something to you. My store was 252 Boutique after my mom's birthday, right? So it was sentimental to me. And that's how I came up with the name. But it's tricky to name your business for sure.
Yeah, I know it is. Yeah, I always say that was the hardest thing. That was the hardest part of it. Nothing to do with marketing, nothing to do with like getting clients. It was just the naming process. So, but yeah. So
well, we'll move on from that. But I'm glad that you told us. You kind of mentioned marketing automation, which I think is people hear about it a lot. But if people aren't familiar with it, do you want to just talk on that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's actually something I love is marketing automation. It's ultimately, I always say like break it down into simple terms. It's like using a trigger and an action. And so it's a way that we can like streamline processes that you might be manually doing historically. So, within most like CRM tools now, there's marketing automation built into them. So the easiest example would be the form on your website. So somebody fills out the form, and we want two things to happen out of that form trigger. So the form fill is a trigger, and then the actions that we want to happen are what steps goes next. So, the simplest one would be, okay, we need to notify our internal team, right, that somebody's filled out the form. And then we want to communicate to the person who filled out the form. So let's send an email to our internal sales team, and let's send a follow-up email giving the information that they filled out the form for to the person who filled out the form, right? So send them an email. So that's like the simplest version. You can do all kinds of things in terms of automation, from meeting scheduling automation to a drip campaign where somebody fills out that form or clicks onto a place on your website, or looks at, let's say, a PDF that you've sent them, and that triggers, let's say, a series of actions to happen. Like we can send them that follow-up email, and then if they don't respond to you, maybe 2 days later, we send them another follow-up, and then maybe 2 days after that, if there's still no response, maybe we set a notification for our sales team to pick up the phone and call them, as an example, right? So, so we've done this for years in terms of our own lead generation process for how we attract businesses through, digital advertising strategy, where we're trying to drive traffic from whether it's social media or Google search. So through SEO or through Google Ads, driving traffic back to a landing page or to our website, get them to hopefully we've piqued their interest with what our offering is, get them to fill out that form, for something in return. And then it starts the conversation as an inbound kind of process where our sales team has warm leads to nurture and follow up with. So, yeah, that's maybe the easiest way to talk about marketing automation.
Yeah, it's fantastic because in the olden days, I'll say, which really wasn't that long ago, you literally were probably sending out all of these emails by yourself as the business, right? Or you're like, oh, I should follow up with that person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For
exactly.
now, it's just automatic.
Yeah. And there's all kinds of things that you can do with that. And I just won't get into all of them, but, from obviously segmenting your audiences to, now integrating, text messaging into that as well as email to even, now WhatsApp is built into it. There's all kinds of things that we can do. It's just taking the time to really kind of strategize it for your business in terms of the best communication, with your client base. Right. So
yeah, for sure. Do you have a favorite CRM that you recommend for small business?
We are actively actually just building out a new one right now that it's something that we're going to be kind of selling as a service, which is
awesome.
exciting. So it's just not quite ready yet, but it's a white label partner that we're working with that has this software, and it's called Go High Level, but it's from a naming side of things, I'm like, what? But it's a very powerful software, and it's super exciting to kind of get that rolling. And so, that one I've dabbled in. Keep, it's called. It used to be called Infusionsoft. There's the obvious ones like HubSpot and Salesforce. But for me, those ones are such large, software solutions and very expensive. And I don't know, I guess I'm always thinking from a small business perspective. So I want something that's a little bit more affordable and easier to use. So.
Yeah, I agree. I think for bigger companies, those HubSpot and Salesforce are good, but small business, they're probably a little too much. Also, they're expensive.
Yeah, very expensive. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about the future of marketing and where we're going. AI is a huge buzz right now, and people are talking about it. So let's start with maybe just a little bit AI. What is it? What does it do?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, first of all, nice segue, Mackenzie. It's as if we talked about this already or something.
Yeah,
but yeah, we've just started. No, not just started. We've integrated a lot of, let's say, AI and ChatGPT into our curriculum because we've just been obviously hearing from our clients that they want to learn more. They're not sure what it is, what it can do, and ultimately, when we talk about AI or artificial intelligence, we're really kind of diving into a world where, a machine mimics human intelligence, right? So, imagine machines that can think, they can learn, they can even make decisions much like we do as humans, but at a way faster pace. And so, it can just process so much data and spot, patterns and make predictions way quicker than what we could, right? So way smarter than we could. And so, and if you now bring that into a marketing perspective, it's an absolute game changer. It can dive into consumer behavior. It can look at your historical data and maybe forecast upcoming trends or learn more about your audience and develop very detailed personas for that audience so that you have better messaging that connects with that audience. To chatbots, that's a really big change that we're going to see and continue to see evolve through AI is the utilization of chatbots where, I think the biggest thing when people start to get into ChatGPT as their starting point is that they use it and they ask it, they prompt it with some kind of question, whether it's writing a caption or response to an email or whatever, and it comes off just super artificial and generic.
Yeah,
and they're like, oh, this is junk, right? And they just haven't quite learned how to use the tool effectively yet, right? And so, they need to learn how to prompt that, and teach the tool about their business and who their audience is and the language that they want to use and, the tone, the voice and the tone of their business and, maybe information about their services and some of those things. So it really takes what are you feeding it as the starting point, and then ask it the question and then refine from there, because and if it's not exactly what you like, keep on prompting it with further and further refinements. And so that's how to effectively use it. And with chatbots are going to kind of pull from whatever data source they have access to, right? And so if it's like using, let's say, a similar type of GPT as ChatGPT, then it's going to be pulling from just like very generic, all of the data that it has available to it. But what you can actually do, what we're seeing happen more and more now, is that you can actually kind of house all of your intellectual property in a specific area. So let's say we use something like Notion, and we house all of our intellectual property about our business, about all the things that we offer as a service, whatever that might look like. And we can teach the chatbot to actually speak to that IP, that intellectual property, so that it's only pulling information from there. So then basically what we can do is we can vet all the information that's in that bank of data, so that it's always going to be pulling accurate information that we've already approved. It is aligned with kind of our values and what we believe and what, the facts that we've confirmed. And so that will just continue to evolve as time goes on here. And those tools are just going to become more sophisticated. And the people obviously using them will also become more sophisticated in how we use them properly.
Yeah, for sure. And I know I've talked to people that are concerned, like, oh, it's going to take jobs away because you don't need a person to do the writing or whatever. But really, you still need the human to, like you say, prompt it and ask the questions.
Exactly. I would have to say it's like, sure, there could be some functions that maybe get changed or obsolete, but like in terms of job creation, it just creates in my mind, it just creates more jobs but just in maybe different capacities, right? So it's like, and when you think about the education system and how lots of them might kind of ultimately resist the use of AI or ChatGPT within their operations. In my mind, like, they should be empowering people. They should be teaching them the effective ways of using it, because it's here. It's not going anywhere, right? So it's like, empower those people so that they're better able to use it and more and use their time in a more strategic way that ultimately will help the business to grow even faster, right? So it's like, let's get behind this and just know that it's not going anywhere, right? It's like, it's probably the exact same way that people probably resisted, computers and, the internet and all these other things as, history has gone on. There's always been a bit of a resistance every single time, right? So it's here.
Oh, yeah.
Let's embrace it and move on with it.
I agree. And it's no different than automating the marketing processes that we just talked about, right? It's like, it's just to help you in your business be more successful, do something faster, or with, I don't want to say less effort, because it's still effort, but I maybe don't have to write every single word, but I still have to have some input into the information that's going in there.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there any downfalls, do you think, to using AI?
Yeah, I mean, of course. I mean, first of all, I mean, one of the biggest conversations would be like how easy it is to just become reliant on it, right? Like,
True.
And because it's tempting, right? Like, it's so easy, and so, but then you risk losing that human touch if you're just, let's say, copy and pasting straight from those prompts and not even looking at what it's providing you. And we're just talking ChatGPT at this point, but. Yeah. And I mean, it also, like, they talk about like bias, right? Because it's like, it's only as good as the information that somebody's provided it to learn from.
Right.
So if there's bias in that information that's being provided to it, then the results that it's going to create is obviously going to be biased as well. So there's that. Yeah. And I think it's like, obviously the barrier to entry for a lot of like, businesses on how to use it would be also part of that, where it's like, the cost to create your own artificial intelligence is just quite a bit. So, definitely a downfall there. But yeah, I think honestly, it's just like still having a lens through a human eye, making sure that you're not just accepting the information that's providing you, at exactly what it's giving you. Like, make sure you've looked it over and using it in a strategic way. So.
Yeah, I totally agree. And what do you think are the biggest pros? Like, why should people use it?
Oh, I honestly think it's such a amazing tool. From a business standpoint, I think you can use it in every aspect of business. Whether that's creating agendas for your meetings and or building frameworks for your strategies, to asking it to educate you on specific topics, to helping you to write content for whatever you might be doing, whether it's your blog or your social media posts, or coming up with content ideas. Like, kind of the list goes on and on. And that's just, again, I'm just talking ChatGPT. I'm not even getting into the AI tools. Like, there's tools out there right now that, one of the coolest ones I saw at a conference recently was, I record myself talking for 2 minutes just so that I can learn about my mannerisms and my facial features and whatever, my hand movements and all of that.
Yeah.
And then what I can do is I can feed a transcript, and I can have it basically use what it's learned from me in here and just create talking videos using the script that I've given it. And I can change of me talking. Actually, Mackenzie, this is
mind blown.
This is currently not me talking.
Yeah. This is the bot Travis, not the real life Travis.
Yeah, I'm behind here just typing away. But no, it's powerful because you can even change languages as well. I've seen a buddy who can't speak one word of Spanish be able to create a 5-minute video of him speaking Spanish by just using that tool, and it looks so natural. You would never be able to tell. And the list goes on. Like, if you start to research all the tools out there, from helping you, optimize your schedule, to writing content, to creating creative content, of imagery, to these video creation tools, to course creators, literally the list goes on. So if you are in any field of business, be doing your research, be prepared to be overwhelmed by the number of tools that are out there. And that's only going to expand as time goes on here. So, yeah.
I agree. And I feel like in the next couple of years, it's just going to be like exponential the way it goes.
Yeah. But it can be, it can help to be able to, give quicker responses, personalize, communication, reduce workflows of your operations. It can, make people more strategic in their job function. I don't know. I think there's lots of benefits to it. I talked about some of those, potential downfalls, but I think there's, many more benefits that can be, used and kind of focus on as to why you should be using it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Travis, looking back on your entrepreneurial life and you're having your own business and whatnot, is there a most important lesson that you've learned along the way?
Oh, wow. Yeah, you know what? I mean, that's a good question. I have to think real quickly. I'd probably have to say, it can consume you. And you have to find a balance in life that doesn't start, it's not, yes, it's your world, but it doesn't need to be your whole world, right? Like, you still need to find time for yourself, for your family, for your friends, your loved ones. You need to learn how to be mindful when you have so many pressures coming at you and notifications and, all these this like crazy amounts of stimulation coming at you all the time. Right. So, how can you, calm your like nervous system to the point where you're not just consumed in and kind of bouncing around from thing to thing to thing. And I know I learned that early on in my career and I've tried my best, and it's an ongoing battle. It's like, I'm not perfect. None of us are perfect.
No, it's hard for everyone, really.
Yeah. And then as you might think you got it figured out, and then all of a sudden you realize you don't. And so, that's definitely one thing, is try to find that balance and be disciplined to not work, all hours of the day, every day. So.
Yeah, I love that advice. And it's so important to take care of yourself and make sure that you're not consumed by it, because you will face burnout then, right?
For sure.
Yeah. Is there anything you wish you had known, or anything, maybe this is what you would tell your younger self, or is there something else that you're like, oh geez, I wish I would have known that 10 years ago?
The biggest mistake that I say I probably made early in business was not understanding the value of debt, actually. We built the business on cash and really sacrificed the first 2 years of our life by doing so. By not thinking, I don't know, we just like wanted to bootstrap the whole business and not take any debt. But I wish we would have, just for a better quality of life during that time period. So I think that's a mistake that I would say definitely made early in business was that not taking care of myself
financially
over the business. And maybe it kind of goes to that other point about, the getting consumed by the business, because I definitely was in those first 2 years. So
I actually love that, because I think it's a point that a lot of people don't think about. They think like, oh, if we don't have a loan to pay, or we don't have, something financially that is reoccurring, we'll be better off. But I think you're right. In the end, you might actually be farther ahead if you get a little kind of bit of cash to get you started, for sure.
Well, yeah. Do you know what it's like to go on a date and not know if your credit card's going to bounce? Or even just a coffee? That's really fun. Let me tell you.
Travis, I've been an entrepreneur for over 10 years. I know exactly what that feels like. You know what? I think it's so funny too, because there's also this kind of weird stereotype or stigma, I don't know what it is, where people are like, oh, you own a business, you're rich. Yeah. And it's, oh, well, especially not when you start. No, you might get there, but no, definitely not. You oftentimes are paying for out of your own pocket for things, right?
Yeah. Well, and it's like, even after your business is matured, it's like, do you know what it's like to live a life where every single month I'm wondering, how am I going to do it next month? Am I going to be able to survive this? And like, it's this ongoing fear that, like, I don't know if it's like a doomsday thing, but it's like, I just always fear, what if this doesn't work? And it's like, it always seems to work out. So
I was going to say, and here you are, you have a great business. You are still here. I'm still here. Yeah. For most of us, you work hard to make it work, right?
For sure.
And I appreciate that. Travis, thank you so much for being on. I know that people are going to want to know more about you and know more about Blue Moose. So where's the best way for them to find you?
Definitely just our website at bluemoosemedia.com, and reach out, have a chat with us. There's never any pressure, I promise you. Always love to have, some chats with local businesses and find out what they're working on or what they're trying to work on or what they're challenged with and see if we can help. So, I think that's it.
I appreciate that. And as someone that's used your services before, I can tell you that it's definitely worth it. So check out Blue Moose. Travis, thank you so much for being on. And for everybody else, we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for listening to Winning. Be sure to subscribe to get all of our new episodes. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others. Post about it on social media and leave a rating and review wherever you listen to Winning. To catch all of the latest from us, you can follow Winning Podcast on Instagram at winning_podcast, Facebook at Winning Podcast, and on Twitter at Winning Pod. Winning was created and is produced by me, Mackenzie Kilshaw. Music created by Summer Furby. Editing by Seth Armstrong. Special thanks to Shauna Foster for voicing our opening. And of course, a huge thank you to this episode's guest. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode.